Welcome back to Anthology's video on entering non-book inventory. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at part 1 and you are now ready for part 2. Let's look at what we're going to talk about in part 2. We're going to talk about planning, just as we did in part 1, but we're going to go on and talk about costing and pricing in Anthology. So let's get started. Costing and pricing in Anthology. When you're thinking about that, consider whether an item is discounted when you purchase it or not. What do I mean by that? Well, the best example of a discounted item is from the book industry because that's how the book industry works. What happens is the book industry will set the price that you're going to sell the item for and then give you a discount off of it. So when you're working with Anthology and you want to enter that type of record in, consider what you need to put on the inventory record. You want to make the list and the retail the same. Whether it's a book item or a non-book item, the question is, are you getting a discount or not? If you are, make the list and retail the same. And then on the purchase order, fill in the discount amount. What we want you to do is to work with what you know. What you know is what the item is selling for, and what you know is the discounted amount. Now let's talk about what happens when you're working with a non-discounted item. Typically, when you're working with a non-discounted item, the vendor is not going to tell you what you're going to sell it for. And thereby, they're not going to give you a discount. They're not going to use discounts when you purchase it. So they're going to say, well, I'll sell you the item for $5.99, and you decide what it's going to sell for. So how do you put that in Anthology? Go ahead and enter your cost, this is what you know, your cost, in the list field, and then having determined what it is that you're selling it for, put your selling price in the retail field. When you get to the purchase order, remember to leave the list and retail as different, and do not use a discount. If you use a discount at this point in time, you will look as though you're making lots of money. But it's only going to be on paper. It's not going to reflect reality. Okay, let's review these fields again just so that you're clear about what goes in there. On the inventory record, where it says list, remember that that's your cost. You know what that is because that's what the vendor charged you. In the retail field, what you're going to enter in is what you're selling the item for. That's what the price is, and you will have determined that. Remember, this is again for non-discounted items. Let's take a look at how that will look in Anthology when you create the record. So over here on the left-hand side, we're looking at the inventory record. This is the SKU number for it, probably the barcode. This is the vendor's reorder number here. And we can tell that we are selling the item for $27 and that we purchased it for $13.50. So on the purchase order, it's going to look like this. The list and the retail will be different, and there is no discount. Now remember, if you're working with discounted items, typically your books, you're going to see the list and the retail as the same, and then a discounted amount in the discount field. We have one more aspect we want you to consider when you're thinking about costing and pricing in Anthology, and that's a tool that we've added to Anthology in the departmental discounts. If you notice on the screen, we're looking at the departments, the list tab, and we're seeing all the departments that are in Anthology and purchase discounts that are in some of them. So what is this about? Well, what we've done is added a purchase discount to some departments, in this case specifically books, so that if you purchase books and then you don't receive them and you sell them, you're still protecting your cost of goods sold by 40%. Now, if you put a non-book inventory in here that is not discounted, and then you do the same process, remember your list and your retail will be different, and then we're going to take 40% off your list, which is going to make your cost look very, very good. So suddenly you're going to make profit on those items that's not realistic. So please consider that when you're considering what department to put non-inventory items that are not discounted. Now you can use this tool to your advantage if you have other items that you purchase besides books that you get a discount off of. You can put it in its own department. Our example here is calendars. So let's say that you're purchasing calendars at a discount and you want to preserve that 30% just in case it's not received and it's sold. Then go ahead and create a department, put the 30% in there on the purchase discount, and it will be protected. Now, where do you put this in? The next screen we're looking at is an individual department record. We're in Master Files Departments, specifically on the Cafe department. On the Details tab, the first entry in says Default Purchase Discount for Costing. This is where you'd put in your percentage or leave it blank. This concludes Part 2 on entering non-book inventory, costing, and pricing. Please feel free to go on to Part number 3 and entering non-book inventory. Thank you.